Now, moving forward to social cognitive theory, we've got this social learning theory that was developed in the 1960s thanks to Albert Bandura. Now, Bandura proposes that learning occurs in social context through a dynamic and reciprocal interaction of the person, their own behavior, and the environment. We don't just learn by things happening directly to us. We can observe, or through observational learning, see people experiencing an event and either learn through reinforcement or punishment to engage in that particular activity. So he had this famous Bobo doll experiment. And what happened in this experiment is children observed an adult engaging with this blow up Bobo doll. And depending on on what the consequences were, served to show what the children would do as a result. So if whenever the adults were engaging in aggressive behaviors toward the Bobo doll and they were reinforced, then the children would also follow suit. But if the adults were punished as a result for engaging in that aggressive behavior, the children would tend to stay away from the Bobo doll and especially not engage in aggressive behaviors. Now, when it comes to the cognitive perspective, so cognition quite simply equals thinking. So when I refer to cognition or cognitive, that is talking about your thoughts or how our mental processes or cognition changes over time. So Jean Piaget created the theory of cognitive development, which is another discontinuous theory. And there's 4 stages of this theory of cognitive development, where in each stage there is a difficulty that we have to navigate and become successful through. So the first stage is the sensory motor stage, which happens from about birth to 2 years old. So the difficulties here are object permanence as well as stranger anxiety, a fear of unfamiliar people. And with the concept of object permanence, this is why peekaboo is so engaging to infants, is because they haven't developed the sense of object permanence, which object permanence is quite simply the understanding that even if something is out of sight, it still exists. So whenever you play peekaboo and you cover your face up, the infants, they think that you have gone into oblivion. You no longer exist. And then whenever you remove your hands, you magically reappear into existence. And so that's really engaging for infants. Now, during the pre-operational stage, which happens from about 2 to 7 years old, the main difficulty here is egocentrism and theory of mind. So with egocentrism, children have difficulty taking the perspective of others. That's why we really emphasize sharing during this time, because maybe little Johnny also wants to play with the toy that you are playing with. As well as the theory of mind, understanding that people have thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that are different from our own. And this usually will develop between 3 to 5 years old. The third stage is the concrete operational stage, which happens from about 7 to 11 years old. And so the main difficulty here is conservation, the concept of conservation. This is the understanding that just because something changes in its size, shape, or container, it remains the same amount. So let's say, for example, I've got 2 cups of water. They are filled up to the same level. All right, and then I were to bring in this very skinny cylindrical cup. And I were to take one of those equal cups and pour it into the tall cylindrical one. Of course, the tall cylindrical one is going to look like it's going to be higher than the other cup of water. And so a child who hasn't understood the concept of conservation yet is going to say that there's more water or more liquid in the cylindrical cup simply because it's taller. But we have achieved this concept of conservation, whenever we understand that whenever we take those equal cups and just because we pour it into a different container, it's still the same amount. And then lastly is the formal operational stage, which happens from about age 11 and then into adulthood, where we're really dealing with abstract ideas and logical reasoning. So children can use abstract thinking to problem solve, look at alternative solutions, and test these solutions. A renewed sense of egocentrism occurs in adolescence as well.